I always thought words were just words, that a stupid joke, especially in the heat of an argument, could never actually blow my world apart. But standing here now, staring at the empty silence that used to be my life, I realize just how wrong I was. You know, you always hear about people making mistakes they can't take back, but you never really think it could be you. Until suddenly, it is. I'm Jessica, I'm 32, and this is how I destroyed everything I cared about, all because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Let me rewind. Maybe if I paint the whole picture, you'll see how easy it is to slide into disaster, one careless comment at a time. Mark and I had always had our ups and downs. What couple doesn't? We're parents, we're tired, life is expensive, and neither of us is perfect. Mark, my husband, is 34, a man who works hard, who really does try. But in a world that feels like it's always demanding more, sometimes trying just doesn't seem like enough. And then there's me. I handle our money. Or, more honestly, I mishandle it. Saving isn't my thing. I crave instant gratification, living for that little rush when I buy something new, something shiny, something to make me forget. Just for a moment. That the bills are piling up and the stress is always there, breathing down our necks. Mark would remind me, gently at first, then with that edge in his voice that told me he was losing patience. He'd talk about budgeting, about being careful, about the future. And every time, I'd roll my eyes. I'd tease him, sometimes just to break the tension, sometimes because I honestly thought he needed to lighten up. But beneath it all, I was frustrated too. Frustrated that we couldn't seem to get ahead, that his job never paid quite enough, that life just felt so small. That night started out like any other. The kids were with their grandma, and Mark and I finally had a rare, quiet evening at home. You'd think we would have enjoyed it. But we didn't. Instead, we fell back into the same old argument. Money, bills, my spending. He said, "Jess, we need to talk about being more careful with our finances," and I felt that familiar resentment spike up inside me. Why did every conversation have to end up here? Why couldn't we just be happy, just for a little while? So, instead of listening, instead of trying to meet him halfway, I made a joke. A stupid, cutting, unforgivable joke. Maybe you should get a better job, Mark. Or maybe I should just find a sugar daddy. At least then we wouldn't be stressing about money every 5 minutes. I said it with a laugh, like I always did, like I thought that made it okay. But this time, something shifted. I watched the light drain from his eyes. His face went cold, distant, like he was looking at a stranger. In that moment, I still didn't get it. I thought he was overreacting, being dramatic. I never imagined those words would echo so loudly that they'd drown out everything else between us. He didn't come back to bed that night. I texted, I called. Nothing. That's when the anxiety started, the crawling, twisting feeling in my gut that told me I'd gone too far. When he finally came home, the house felt heavy with things left unsaid. He wouldn't even look at me. And when I finally tried to break the ice, to act like everything was normal, he exploded. "You don't get it, Jess," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper but filled with so much pain. "You think it's funny to mock my job? You joke about getting a sugar daddy while I'm working my ass off to keep us afloat? That's not funny. It's humiliating. It makes me feel worthless." For the first time, I saw how deep my words had cut. But instead of owning up to it, I did what I always do. I doubled down. I told him he was too sensitive, that it was just a joke, that he needed to get over it. But he wouldn't get over it. He was done. Done with the jokes, the criticism, the way I always made him feel like he wasn't enough. And for a moment, I felt the ground shift beneath me, as if everything I took for granted was suddenly in danger of falling apart. Still, I refused to apologize. My pride wouldn't let me. I told myself he was overreacting. Who gets that upset over a joke? But deep down, I think I knew. It wasn't just the joke. It was everything that came before it. The years of small insults, of spending money we didn't have, of making him feel less than. The joke was just the last straw. The next few days were torture. He avoided me, barely spoke, locked himself away in his office. The kids noticed, asking why Daddy seemed so sad, why he wouldn't come out and play. I lied. "Daddy's just tired," I told them. Everything's fine, but it wasn't. And the longer it dragged on, the more stubborn I became. I couldn't admit I was wrong. I couldn't say the words he needed to hear. I distracted myself the way I always did. Shopping, scrolling through social media, anything to avoid sitting alone with my thoughts. But every happy photo, every smiling family, made me feel like I was sinking further into a hole I'd dug for myself. Then, like some sick joke from the universe, I saw a post from one of Mark's old coworkers. He'd just gotten promoted, big salary, big smiles. I thought about all the dreams Mark once had, all the goals he'd quietly buried so I could have what I wanted. And instead of feeling grateful, I felt angry. At him, at myself, at the whole world. That anger pushed me deeper into my own stubbornness. I refused to reach out, refused to chase him, refused to apologize for something I still didn't think was my fault. When I finally broke down and sent him a text, all I could manage was, "If you'd just talk to me, we could move past this. Sorry you're so upset, but I don't know what you want me to do." His response was ice cold. "I need space, Jess. I need time to think. I don't know if I can keep doing this." It wasn't until he didn't show up for a planned family outing that it really hit me. He wasn't coming back. Not in the way he used to. The kids ran around the park, laughing and shouting, and I just stood there, numb. All I could think about was how everything was unraveling, and I didn't know how to stop it. That night, alone on the couch, the tears finally came. But even then, I couldn't bring myself to apologize the way I should have. I still wanted to believe that I was right, that he was overreacting, that everything would go back to normal if I just waited it out. But it didn't. The days dragged on, the silence grew, and the distance between us became a canyon I didn't know how to cross. Finally, I snapped. I couldn't take the tension anymore. I confronted him, demanded to know why he was still acting like a wounded animal. "I've apologized enough, haven't I? What more do you want from me?" I said, my voice sharp and brittle. Mark stood up, looking at me with eyes so tired and defeated I barely recognized him. "It's not just the joke, Jess," he said, voice trembling. "It's everything. The way you treat me, the way you talk about me, the way you make me feel small every single day. I've tried to laugh it off, to believe you didn't mean it, but I can't do it anymore. I'm done." The words hit me like a slap. I tried to argue, tried to tell him he was blowing things out of proportion, but he just shook his head. "You think I'm the problem? You think I'm overreacting?" he asked, his voice rising. "You spend money we don't have, you joke about my job, and you expect me to just keep taking it? I'm done, Jess. I'm done feeling like I'm never enough for you." For the first time, I saw myself through his eyes. And I didn't like what I saw. I tried to say I was sorry, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't enough. I'd said sorry too many times before, never really meaning it, never really changing. He turned away from me and walked toward the door. "I need space. I need to think about what I want," he said quietly. I watched him leave, my chest tight with panic and regret, but I still couldn't bring myself to chase after him. My pride wouldn't let me. Even as I stood there, trembling, I kept telling myself he was just being dramatic, that he'd come back when he calmed down. But he didn't. The next morning, the house felt empty, suffocating. The kids were at school, and all I had were my own thoughts. Thoughts that tore me apart from the inside. I tried calling Mark, desperate for a sign that things could still be fixed, but he ignored every call, every message. My hands shook with anxiety, my mind spinning with everything I wished I'd never said. That night, I came home and found an envelope on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation. Just a divorce petition. My heart dropped. I stood there, staring at those cold, legal words, unable to breathe, unable to process what was happening. Was this really it? Was he really gone? The realization crushed me. All those jokes, all those insults, all those nights spent putting my own wants ahead of his. Suddenly, I saw them for what they were. Tiny, sharp blades that had worn him down, year after year, until there was nothing left. And now, it was too late. I met Mark the next day, hoping, begging, for a chance to fix things. He looked exhausted, defeated, like a man who had nothing left to give. "Please, Mark, don't do this. I messed up, but I can fix it. I promise," I pleaded. But he just shook his head, his eyes full of hurt and disappointment. "I don't think you can, Jess," he said, his voice soft but final. "I've been trying for so long, trying to make you see how much I care, but it's like you never even noticed. Or maybe you just didn't care. I kept forgiving you, hoping things would get better, but they never did." I tried to say I was sorry, that I loved him, but he didn't even look at me. "You've always been impulsive, always thinking about what you want, never thinking about how it affects anyone else. I can't do this anymore. I'm done." He picked up his things and walked out the door, leaving me standing in the ruins of our life together. As the days passed, the reality sank in. Mark was gone. The kids asked about him, their little faces full of questions I couldn't answer. The house felt too big, too empty, too full of memories I'd taken for granted. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of what I'd lost. His shoes by the door, his favorite mug in the sink, the dent in the couch where he always sat. I hated it. I hated myself for letting it come to this. I tried to hold it together for the kids, tried to pretend that everything was okay, but inside I was falling apart. I wanted to blame Mark, to blame the universe, to blame anyone but myself. But deep down, I knew the truth. I'd driven him away. With my impulsive spending, my harsh words, my refusal to take responsibility for anything. I'd chipped away at his love, day by day, until there was nothing left. Now, I'm alone. I wake up every morning and wonder what would have happened if I'd just stopped to think before speaking, if I'd put my pride aside for once in my life. But I can't go back. All I can do is live with the consequences, live with the emptiness I created. If you're listening to this, if you're reading my story and thinking, that could never be me, let me tell you. It can. It happens slowly, quietly, like water wearing down stone. You think you have time to fix things, to make it right, until suddenly, you don't. Mark is gone. He's not coming back. And all I'm left with is the echo of my own mistakes. I loved him. I still do. But sometimes, love isn't enough. Especially when you can't see past your own pride until it's too late. So now, I sit here in the silent house, holding divorce papers in trembling hands, wishing I could turn back time. But I can't. All I can do is tell the truth, hope someone out there learns from my pain, and try to become the kind of person who would never make the same mistake again.